Bullshit.
This is better know a liar, and a tax increase. Remember 2010? It was a simpler time, a peaceful time. The entertainers of the 70s and 80s were thought of as decent people. You could still grab a Freddo for 10p, and nobody had heard of Ebola or Lady Gaga, two deadly viruses that can spread quickly. 2010 was also the year of the most important recent election, and that's not just because you can't remember any others. Central to this election was the economy, which had recently gone down the shitter, with every party desperate to prove that they would be the ones to not only fix it, but also ensure that everyone would prosper. One of these parties was led by man of the people, Dave Cameron, who looked at the regressive value-added tax, a tax applied on most goods and services, and concluded that compared to the rich, the poorest pay a higher share of their income on V.A.T, as they are more likely to spend their income. Well, given the tough economic times, and the fact that poor people were struggling, our Dave, a month prior to the 2010 election, insisted that there would be no increase in V.A.T.
Said very clearly, no plans to increase V.A.T. were about trying to get spending under control rather than putting up taxes.
In fact, Dave and his Conservative Party went further, with Commoner Gideon Ozzy Osborne, the potential Chancellor, wheeled out to claim, "Our plans involve cutting wasteful spending. Our plans don't involve an increase in V.A.T. Yep, and on the back of this, and other pledges, Dave and his Conservatives limped into power. With things suddenly looking up, and a bright future undoubtedly ahead. However,
on the 4th of January next year, the main rate of VAT will rise from 17.5% to 20%. The years of debt and spending make this unavoidable. This single tax measure will, by the end of the Parliament, generate over £13 billion a year of extra revenues. That is £13 billion we don't have to find from extra spending cuts or income tax rises. I can also give this House a commitment that we will keep everyday essentials such as food and children's clothing, as well as other zero-rated items like newspapers and printed books, exempt from VAT over the course of this Parliament. And
Yep, it turned out Dave and his party's pledge was
bullshit.
As on the 22nd of June 2010, just 47 days after the pledge was made, VAT was increased to a whopping 20%. This increase, which meant for the first time VAT was the same as the basic rate of income tax, also helped crush demand for services, starve people of financial support, increased inflation, and pushed the country into the worst and deepest double-dip recession since the war. So well done, Dave and Gideon. But what's really strange about this whole sorry situation is not the blatant lie that was told by our Dave and our Gideon, but had Dave been smart enough to listen to himself, then this whole scandal could have been avoided. However, in an effort to address his critics, including himself, our Dave claimed that this rise in VAT will help the poor and penalise the wealthy. But just as our Dave predicted, the increase in VAT, contrary to our Dave's latest statement, has hit the poorest the hardest. As put quite simply, people on lower incomes are more likely to spend their income, which VAT will now take a larger portion of, whilst our Dave's banker friends are more likely to stash their bonuses away or buy some of the everyday items exempt from VAT, such as antiques, second homes and septic tanks. Still, I suppose as Government Minister, Lloyd Ford suggested, those with less money should be prepared to take a greater risk, and if that fails, they could always do what a number of Tory donors have done. Base themselves in a nice little tax haven, register their underwear in a drawer in Monaco, and put their cat food in their wife's name in the Seychelles. That should help them cope with the rise in VAT. So there we have it, not one, but two lies from our Dave, and a tax rise thrown in as well. And while our Dave has somehow managed to lose an argument with himself, it's worth better knowing that according to the Taxpayers Alliance, there have been 300 tax rises since 2010, with your average pleb now spending almost a sixth more of their income on taxes, whilst corporations and the wealthiest have had tax cuts. And while we can safely file these two truthful indiscretions under our Dave's growing collection of lies, it is, in the words of Cameron himself, the poorest who will once again be hit hardest by this VAT rise.
Said very clearly, no plans to increase VAT. We're about trying to get spending under control rather than putting up taxes.
We have to go back!